Hey, and welcome to The Better Drummer with Zach Covington. I'm Zach Covington. In this video, we're going to talk about the 5 jazz drum grooves that you need to get through basically every gig. Let's get right into it. Groove number 1 is traditional swing. Now, I know that most of you probably already know how to do this, but for those of you that don't, you can click up in the top right to go watch How to Play Jazz Drums, the Basics, and that'll give you a step-by-step guide into how to get your limbs together and how to play that traditional swing pattern. Now, if you have played it before, here are just a few tips and a few things that I've learned to really have an authentic traditional swing sound. The first thing is to have that ride cymbal be nice and present, nice and bouncy, nice and buoyant, right? To get really swinging. Sounding something like this. 1, 2, 3. The second thing is getting some comping vocabulary together between your snare drum and bass drum sounding like this. 1, 2, 3. The third tip to having that nice, authentic, traditional swing sound is to feather the bass drum. Now, we talked about that in the How to Play Jazz Drums, the Basics, but it's called the Basics and the Fundamentals for a reason. Super important, right? 1, 2, 3. Groove number 2 is a ballad or a walking ballad. And for this, you're going to need some brushes of some sort. My preference is sort of thinner wire brushes. These are the Vic Firth Heritage brush or something like that. Not really sure. They're the purple ones. If you're brand new to the brushes, I'll teach you a few things really quickly. If you are right-handed, then your left hand is going to go in a sweeping motion around the drum like this. And your right hand can play the swing pattern just really slowly as you do in a ballad. So that might sound something like this. 1, 2, 3. Now, people play ballads swung, but they also play them straight. So you might encounter a situation where you have to play a ballad more like this. 2, 3. You also might hear some triplet or swung vocabulary be played by your fellow musicians. So if they do that, it's okay to throw in a little triplet thing like I just did then. The key to having a solid brush sound is to make sure you're really sweeping across the drum and not down into the drum, right? So you can notice with my right hand, as I'm playing the ride pattern, I'm sort of sweeping across the drum like this, and I'm also sort of letting it scrape on that, on 1 and 3, really. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1. And it's okay if your right hand to not be totally clean and have a nice sort of arc to the brush, because your left hand is covering that up. And that's its job, to just have that constant wash of sound as the right hand does all the more intricate stuff on top. Groove number 3 is the samba or bossa nova. Now, these are sort of the same thing, with really just a tempo difference between the two. A bossa nova is a slower samba, but in jazz, a lot of people play bossa novas. sort of in the way of Antonio Carlos Jobim. Those are great recordings to go listen to if you've never heard a bossa nova before. There are many different ways to play a bossa nova. You can play it with 2 sticks, 2 brushes, or even 1 brush and 1 stick. I like to start off with 1 brush and 1 stick, the brush in my right hand sort of being the timekeeper, if you will, and then my left hand being the cross stick, which is one of the important parts of the bossa nova. So you'll see my right hand plays 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, sort of like the swing pattern, right, in the traditional jazz groove. And then my left hand plays a cross stick pattern that goes like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4. Now the cool thing about the bossa nova and this type of music is that you don't have to play exactly that cross stick pattern, and actually you probably shouldn't. If you listen to a lot of those recordings, again, you'll find that the drummer is sort of not even playing a pattern sometimes. He's just playing a series of rhythms that gives it that groove. Your feet are going to do this. Your bass drum is going to go 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1. The whole time. Pretty easy. Hi-hat, also pretty easy, borrowed from the swing pattern, or in the swing groove. You're playing on 2 and 4. So that sounds like this together. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3. Here's what that groove sounds like with 1 brush and 1 stick, starting off with playing that pattern in the left hand in the cross stick, and then varying it to give it a little bit more flavor. 1, 2, 3. Another way to play the bossa nova is to play 8th notes on the hi-hat. Or to play it on the ride cymbal. Groove number 4 is the 12/8 Afro-Cuban groove. This groove consists of a few different things sort of all put together. We'll start with our feet first. What we're going to do with our feet is play quarter notes on the hi-hat. So that would be like this. 1, 2, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3, or counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. But we don't really want to count like that. We want to just think in triplets. Your bass drum is going to just play on beat 1. 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1. Let's go to the ride cymbal now. Your ride cymbal is going to play this as the sort of bass groove, and then you can vary it later on. Sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. If you were to count that out in a measure, that rhythm would be 1, 1, let, trip, 3 trip, 4, let, 1, which is pretty hard to say and pretty hard to think about. So don't think about it. Just see if you can get that rhythm into your brain and then into your hands and skip the counting part, because I don't think anyone that has ever learned it has actually done that. But if you need to do that, that's how you would count it. 1, let, trip, 2, let, 1, let, trip, 3 trip, 4, let, 1. A variation of that is bringing those 2 notes that happen right next to each other earlier in the measure. So on that third note that you play. So that would be counted 1, let, triplet, let, 4, let, 1. Again, don't worry about the counting so much. Get the idea into your head and then into your hands. Our left hand is going to do a pattern, again, sort of married to the ride cymbal a little bit. And that's going to be playing on the let of each beat. 1 triplet, 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 4 triplet. And we're just going to vary what instrument we put that on. So the first one's going to be on the snare drum as a cross stick. Then we can put it on the rack tom. And we can just go back and forth between those two. Or on that last one, we could put it on the floor tom. So that would sound like this. 1, 2, here we go. Or all together in the notated version sounds like this. 1, 2, 3. And here's a variation of that. 1, 2, 3. Usually the 12/8 Afro-Cuban is a little bit faster than that, though it depends on the tune and who you're playing with. But here's what it sounds like a little bit faster. Groove number 5 is a funk groove. Now, I'm not going to teach you a groove specifically. I'll give you some examples of some grooves that you could play, but what I'm going to do instead is teach you about the concepts to getting an authentic sort of jazz, funky sound. The first one being still play swung, right? You don't have to always do this, but 9 times out of 10, when you're in a sort of jazz context, and you're playing a funk tune, you still want it to be swinging. Here's an example of what that sounds like, going from straight to swung. Another concept for being super funky is playing 16th notes on the hi-hat and still swinging them. Here's an example of what that sounds like, straight versus swung. That concept is a little tricky, especially once you get into the faster tempos. The key to having that be successful is obviously working slowly at first and then really utilizing your wrist to sort of get 2 notes with 1 motion. I won't go into detail because that'll be maybe something I talk about in the future. The last concept for being funky is having ghost notes on the snare drum and really having them be ghost notes, right? Nice and light, and then nice and contrasting, loud backbeat, right? Here's what some quiet ghost notes sound like. 1, 2, 3. So there you have it, the 5 grooves that should be able to get you through almost every jazz gig that you play. Most likely, you're not even going to use 2 or 3 of these, maybe even 4. You might just be swinging the whole time, and that's totally great. But these are tools to have in your arsenal in case you get into a scenario where someone says, oh, can we play this but like Afro-Cuban or 12/8, or can we do this as a ballad, or can we play this song like a Bossa Nova? If you're curious about getting a little bit more in-depth and having a notated guide, you can download a free PDF in the video description below. That is exactly that, going through all the things we talked about today, as well as a little bit more in depth and some more exercises to get you further down your jazz drumming path. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked what you saw today, hit that subscribe button and the like button as well so that I can feed my marsupials. Thanks again, and I will see you when you're a better drummer.